Okay, so I would first like to bring up that I do not have access to firearms at this point. Okay, the people in my family do, some of the neighbors do, and they know me and they're likely to back me up in certain situations, what have you. Okay, not in a criminal way, but I don't. The bullets on the screen are to help you understand that I'm telling this truth and my story is true. I urge you all to see the My Story playlist, where you'll see a long explanation of my story. It's a little bit out of order because I was doing it as I remembered things, and I made some attempt to make another playlist to put things in order, and that project will probably never be finished in my lifetime, and that's that. So basically I had said that after Maria broke my heart, keep in mind I had told her to her face that I think she's the most beautiful woman ever. I forgot to put that there. Also had a friend that claimed that he messed around with her, but he didn't. And so things like that threw fuel in the fire. And so I went to the reform school having that broken heart, having carved that broken heart in my forearm, under my wrist, the back of my forearm. And before that, and my parents didn't know, that's when I took the 38. It turns out it's the 38 special. I said it was some kind of 38. It's a 38 special. And that's, recently as my parents are selling some of the guns or something, legally, we're moving, what have you. They put it on the desk, the bullets by themselves with other bullets. And so I decided to take that picture, even though people might try to play me out as this crazy guy. I don't carry a gun. Okay. I'm a very, very disciplined person, very smart person, very wise person. I'm not with the senseless violence. So, yeah, I had put the gun to my head, and I'm going to go ahead and bring this up, even though it's a bad time to bring it up, for Marissa's sake, for the victims in the recent mass shootings' sake, to help people put these things together if this video gets out there. I put the 38 special to my head at the time. I was 16 years old. It's like a snub-nosed revolver. I had access to the bullets and the gun at the time. I had access to maybe 4 or 5 different guns. And I was thinking about shooting some of my rivals in the streets. Again, I'm a very disciplined person. I came to the conclusion not to do it because I respect human life, within the boundaries that God wants it to be respected. Because I'm a very much a thinking man. I made that song at the time where I say, they want a ball and ignore the deeper call, and people's mind frames are creating misplaced game, and females acting like dumb wild whore hens, and so on and so forth. So anyway, I put the 38 special to my head, and I had one bullet in one of these chambers. I spun it around, boom, put it to my head. Now it's been a while, but if I remember correctly, I pulled the trigger twice. Okay, and I told myself if I was going to live, if I pulled the trigger 3 times, that I was meant to live. This was over a female, mind you. Same city that Marissa's killed in. And the word Marissa is like the word Mariass. And I know that they hacked my brain over the course of this case, including around that time. They probably caused me to do this Russian roulette thing. I don't think it's a coincidence. It's called Russian roulette, and it's roulette, right? Who's going to rule who? Right, the Satan's alpha or God's alpha, what have you. And it was a 6 shooter, if I'm not mistaken, 6 chambers. So I pulled the trigger twice. I put it to my head. And I often tell it this way, and it confused what actually happened. But I'm pretty sure I know that I pointed it to the ground at one point, and I pulled the trigger, and it fired. I used to tell it as I put it to my head the 3rd time, and something stopped me, and I pointed it to the ground, and I pulled the trigger. And bang. Okay, and I used to tell us I could be dead. One way or another, I could be dead. And I played that game to some degree. And I told myself that, again, if I pulled the trigger 3 times and I died, then I died. And if I didn't, I was meant to live. Because I love so deeply. Here I am, Jesus. I love her that deeply. And she didn't even give me a chance. And I've studied women for many years since then. That was when I was 16 years old. I'm 43 years old now. Going to be 44 this year if I'm still alive. Hopefully I won't be. I've studied thousands of women. I've taken my time to do a study while I was in college. learning about quantitative and qualitative studies. Quantity, right, and quality. Smaller amount group, doing a very qualitative study, and a larger group trying to get as many people as I can into the study. And boy, I could tell you with certainty, when it comes to dating, what you might know already, I overkill because all these people, including feminists, were pretending that it was a myth or something. If females have bad judgment, they're social norm fanatics in general. Okay? They don't know what they're doing at all when it comes to dating. And it's first and foremost because the guys who have designed society, the social controllers, they think in terms of early identification, prevention, and intervention. So Maria Mello is somebody, and I forgot about this when I first came up with it. I remember she broke my heart, who almost got me killed along with the government in the psychological operation. And so in my subconscious, I remember when I tried to contact her too back when I was 30 or so on Facebook. I guess it was not her page. The government set up the page. I don't know. That was in my subconscious or something. I knew there was importance to bring closure to this. And she, or whoever it was, read the message. It said read right at that point. I don't know how it is now on Facebook. It tells you whether or not, it told you whether or not it was read. I read it and didn't respond. And of course that reflects very, very bad judgment. This person's inability to say that they're older now and that they're a woman that works at a corporation that's supposed to be mature, it's supposed to handle this thing as an adult, married or otherwise. This person thought that the most righteous person ever lived, who's the son of 2 doctors, 1 a brain surgeon, a mulatto, a mixed person, was this horrible person that she's got to stay away from. She thought that her unfair father is someone she should obey instead of hearing me out. And I forgot this key part here. Write this part down in case there's any confusion there. When I was trying to talk to her, she would say things like, well, maybe if we were put in the same group. Okay, so she didn't say, hey, don't call me, I'm not interested. She never said that. She said things that would feed into it. And so I'd be like, man, I got to keep trying. And at one point I said, you know what, she's freaking out too much. And I was ready to drop it. That's when her dad called. So I'm ready to drop it anyway, so you can imagine it's kind of obnoxious and it was awkward on the phone. Okay, so that's key there. And keep in mind, I had many rivals in the streets, as many people who hung out with gang members and so on and so forth did. I had my own group of friends that I considered, we agreed that we were in a crew together, what have you. And there's more to it than that. And they weren't with the violence like I was. I'm somebody who was hardened before going to reform school, and I became very, very angry, very hardened afterwards. I went to reform school in Southern California called CEDU in the San Bernardino Mountains, somewhere around there. And I went to reform school in northern Idaho called Ascent Behavior Modification Program. And I had to make a deal with my parents to come home at the time, and I was very, very angry. And I was used to working out. And around that time, 16, 17 years old, I think I was 17, is when I got stabbed with somebody who was on a college football team, very strong guy, worked out a lot. Okay, I beat him at sparring, and then he didn't get a single clean stab because I know firsthand for many reasons, and it goes without saying, this sparring shows transferable skills. So the same difficulty he had landing a punch or a kick, he had trying to stab me, not a single clean stab. So when I got stabbed, it's like I blocked it and it kind of just cut into it. And at one point I grabbed the knife and we were kind of wrestling with it, and it kind of was digging into my side. And then one time, as he jumped up to kind of stab me, I was holding him in midair. I didn't want to drop him on his head, didn't want him to fall on the knife, didn't want to kill him. So he was able to stab me a bit in my back, and one time, you can go ahead and say it, in my butt. I don't think that's a coincidence, because a lot of the people who are persecuting me are LGBT people. So this is the truth of the matter. You got to realize that when it comes to martial arts, I'm not just the top martial artist ever. And actually, when it comes time to striking someone effectively, I'm the fastest, the most surgical, the most vicious, the most fierce, most ferocious. Nobody that's ever lived could beat me at single combat. Not even close, really. There's people who are scary, mean, tough, strong. There's people who are fast. People with solid blows, solid moves. A lot of kung fu experts out there got to a certain proficiency. Karate experts did things that were very impressive. But no one could ever beat me. And I don't underestimate anybody. And I don't overestimate anybody. I think I'm going to go ahead and make this clip part 2. So remember that they're changing my voice. It's like I'm tempted to kind of keep talking because it has some kind of therapeutic value right now, and they're not feeling me so much. I'm outside walking around on my property, which soon I'll be out of here, one way or another. As the buyer, my parents said they're in contract on the property, so I should be out of here pretty soon, one way or another, within 30 days, 35 or so, I think it is right now. So that's that. And these people have been saying that I'm going to die a lot. I'm not somebody who's, I only fear God. Okay, I'm the top martial artist ever possible. Not moved in the slightest. You see the movie Tears of the Sun? That's about my tribe. Okay, the part when, I think it was Bruce Willis pulls out a gun, points it at one of these Igbo soldiers. He's not moved in the slightest. The gun in his face. That's my tribe. That they're trying to kind of show that ruthless, not ruthless, that kind of determination, that martial discipline, okay, when someone's determined to do something. So notice that they go the distance to try to make it so I seem less appealing, to try to make it so I seem evil or gay, to try to mess up the story. This is very much like rock and roll culture. Rock and roll in many ways is the center of Western culture. Rock and roll and frats. They have that kind of dark way about them where there's a lot of evil, and they have a kind of LGBT frat way about them, and it kind of mixes together. It's like Kiss's album or song, The Psycho Circus. See, rock and roll is the idea of Satan coming into a person. If you look it up and you do your research, and there's some videos about it on YouTube, it's what happens when the person starts shaking when they receive the spirit of Satan is the argument that's made. Now, people don't necessarily shake when they receive the devil's spirit. Everyone and their mom these days, right? But me is in the devil's spirit, when my parents are blameless. And they're in it on a spectrum. Okay, you see it in Revelation where it says Satan leads the world astray. That ancient serpent, the devil, who leads the whole world astray, right? They're in his spirit going the wrong way, being led alpha astray. So a huge part of this is whites and Jews and LGBT people trying to pretend that they're ideal. You see it all in the artwork, right? With their false image of Christ, their false image of God, their kind of gay fairies. Look at the angel depictions in the churches. They're fairies. They're false depictions. They lie about everything. It's like when they colonized America, they said they're angry red savages. So they're trying to say that I'm an angry black, savage, and it's stupid. It's very racist, it's very immature, and they provoke me and fuel me and poison me all the time, and they make it so that there's dirt on my car when I go out in public, because if I wipe down the car with a rag, it causes me to have certain pains in my joints. They're using technology to kind of create a certain picture. And think about MAGA, think about Biden. Think about the fakeness, right? Think about Kamala Harris. This kind of theater arts, the kind of historical sort of white, maybe in the 50s, sort of kind of racist depiction of things, racist portrayal, rather, of things. Think about the term gentrification, right? Try, right? Gentry. F-I becomes I-F, if, caution. So if someone cautions you, say, hey, this is what's going on. They gentrify them. They get them out of the city. Okay? Think about gerrymandering, right? Tom and Jerry, trying to determine who votes for what, and drawing the lines for the districts to determine who gets to vote for what. Okay? It goes back to Tom and Jerry, right? Token minorities, Uncle Tom and Jerry from the cartoon. And also Tom from Tom and Jerry looks like the Grinch. So there's a lot of these subtle connections there, right? Animus is a root term for the word animation, means spirit. And the word mate is in the word animation, right, without the E. And the word mate scrambled is tame. The lame, tame game. The aim being the dame. Rhyme and reason. Wordplay. Scribe wordplay. Masonic wordplay. Gospel. Go spell. A magic spell and spelling. Spelling it out for you. Okay, when people don't get it, when you spell it out for them, they're stupid, right? However, it's a bit confusing in these recent videos because I'm being filmed. But if you write it down and you think about it, you'll see the pattern is clear. And the word pet is in the word pattern, which goes back to the forms of set, the jackal, the boar, right? Think about a police officer with armor on, right? The hippo, okay, the donkey, the aardvark, the jackal, right? And he becomes associated with the snake Apep, the world serpent, the ancient serpent, the devil, Set in Alpha, right? Satan, Set in Alpha. Also, Madame Blavatsky, the Russian mystic, also pointed that out. I'm not an occultist, but these are the facts here. So when you look at the picture right here, I emerged as a top martial artist by the time I was 17. Not when I was 16. When I was 16, I was very good at martial arts. I won the trophy. But it took a kind of extra anger and righteous indignation to kind of take me over the top. By the time I was 17, I was very sharp. They're probably going to edit the picture, but at this point you can see in the eyes to some degree. They put kind of red or reddish pink or whatever, or pink, between pink and red in the eyes to kind of confuse the thing. They try to demonize it, make it so I look evil. They changed my eyebrows in the picture, made one big and one small. They did little punk stuff like that because they're very immature people. Very immature people. Think about rock and roll people just ruining things, splashing paint on things. Think about protesters and anarchists. They have that spirit in them, that spirit of chaos, right? Novos ordem seclorum, a new world order, right? An order out of chaos. An order not just out of chaos, but a false order derived from the essence of chaos and confusion, a confusion. Okay, and prepare is pre-rape scrambled. Compare is mock rape scrambled. They do mock rituals, right? Mock rapes in movies. Hollywood, okay, and the magic wand and the holy so-called wood, which goes back to the tree of knowledge versus the tree of life, right? These people have this occult knowledge of the game. Okay. And so when people are talking about the game, they're talking about the role-playing game to some degree. People are pretending to be things that they're not. Well, I am the truth. Okay. Do you think anyone else in human history could have made a top martial arts challenge everybody, offer them tons of money if they can win, okay, and win that challenge? No. And in the future, everyone's going to be some kind of George Jetson, Simpson, Lemming type, hooked to a machine, transhumanism, being assisted by the machine, privileged white Jew and LGBT and token minority people, crypto Jews, trying to show off like they do in the NFL, okay, what have you. It's even called show off, to show something and to throw them off. Think about ICE and how it connects to the police, right? Police, which goes back to the polis, the city center, politics, right? The capital. Having money, having capital, right? Capitalism, and the capital, the center, is money, the root of all evil. So the police. Now they want people to come into American customs, so they look up to people like them and date toward money like a fucking Roman slut. And basically all the Roman aristocracy, right? All the Roman elite, all the females were whores. And they would wear heels because they were brought to heal. Okay? And the word hell is a play on words for heal, but it's not. They're not actually healing. You don't heal by telling people what to do, right? That's what a serial killer thinks. They're mass murdering serial killers. I know I don't have that much memory on my phone, so I'm gonna leave it here. But I don't feel suicidal. I'm ready to die on the drop of a hat for God. Okay. Again, I do not have access to a firearm. Oh, I wanted to correct this real quickly. I said that my neighbors would probably help me out. Very few neighbors would help me out, if any. Okay. But, I felt the need to bring that up, that there's plenty of people with guns around me who would protect me if people try to, approach, try to come after me, and they probably hand me a gun as well. So, but I don't have access to guns. I can't pick up a gun. For those of you trying to play me out as crazy, I'm not crazy. I have 23 witnesses to the SOP. It's crazy for society to turn a blind eye to it. When I have 23 witnesses, I pointed out, I pointed out to the person from the Santa Clara County Sheriff's Department, the person who picks up the phone, I forgot what they're called, dispatcher or whatever, okay, And I repeated twice. She said, yes. She repeated, yeah, 23 witnesses. I got it. That's what she said. I wrote it to the Justice Department, the FBI, Internal Affairs. I said, why isn't anyone doing anything? So it's crazy for them to not investigate this. When I'm a humanitarian son, the son of a brain surgeon, and the people in the psychological operations know very well, like the churches, in their secret societies, Jesuits, Holy See, whatever. They know that I'm the idea that Christ returning is superimposed on in the Bible. They've known this for a long time, and they've done rituals on me since I was a kid, and they've harassed me, and they've gang stalked me. The word gang stalking, it's a play on words for gang, stall, king, and gangs talking. They're trying to do the talking using the gas. The word gas and the word gay, without the Y, is scrambled in the word gang stalking. And also G, the Roman Earth deed, and the G in Freemasonry. And gangs, right? To be a gangster, the G in being a gangster also goes back to Freemasonry and the cult ideas that predate Freemasonry.